The rain hammered against the windows of our small apartment in Seattle, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Barnaby, a 43-year-old freelance graphic designer, had always considered myself a relatively calm, collected individual. But the events of the past few weeks had chipped away at my composure, leaving me raw and vulnerable. It started with little things. Ilara, my wife of 15 years, a vibrant and ambitious marketing executive, had begun working later and later. Important deadlines, she'd say, her voice tight with what I now recognized as carefully constructed lies. I brushed it off, attributing it to the pressures of her demanding job. I'd bring her takeout, rub her tired shoulders, and offer a listening ear. I thought, being a supportive husband. But then came the phone calls. Whispered conversations held in the hallway, the screen angled away from me. I'd walk into a room and she'd abruptly end the call, a flicker of guilt in her usually open eyes. When I asked, she'd say it was work-related, a client in a different time zone. I wanted to believe her desperately. Our marriage was built on trust, on mutual respect and affection. The thought of her betraying that foundation was unbearable. One Saturday morning, Ilara told me she had a conference in Portland. "Just for the day," she said, packing an overnight bag. "I'll be back late." Something felt off. The way she avoided my gaze, the nervous energy that radiated from her. I tried to dismiss it as anxiety about the conference, but the seed of doubt had been planted and it began to take root. As soon as she left, I found myself drawn to her laptop. I knew it was wrong, a violation of her privacy, but the unease gnawing at me was too strong to ignore. I told myself I was just checking her flight details, confirming the conference location. But that wasn't the truth. I wanted to know if my suspicions were justified. Her password, thankfully, was our anniversary date. I opened her email and scrolled through the inbox, my heart pounding in my chest. There were dozens of work-related emails, as expected, but then I saw it. An email with the subject line, "Thinking of you." The sender was listed as Caspian. My hands trembled as I clicked on the email. The message was short, but it hit me like a physical blow. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, counting down the hours." It was signed with a simple C. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The room seemed to spin. I read the email again and again, desperately hoping I was misinterpreting it, but the words were clear, undeniable. My wife was having an affair. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, pacing the apartment, replaying every interaction with Ilara in my mind. I tried to find a logical explanation, a reason for her betrayal, but there was none. I had been a good husband, a loving partner. What had I done to deserve this? When Ilara finally returned late that night, she looked exhausted but otherwise normal. She greeted me with a kiss, asked about my day, and proceeded to tell me all about the conference. I listened in silence, my heart aching with each carefully constructed lie. I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to process, to plan. I couldn't face her without knowing what I was going to say, what I was going to do. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The image of that email burned into my mind. The next morning, I decided to do some digging. I Googled Caspian and found him on LinkedIn. Caspian Vance, senior vice president at Ilara's company. He was handsome, successful, and judging by his profile picture, radiating an aura of smug self-satisfaction. He was also married with 2 young children. The anger that had been simmering inside me finally boiled over. I felt a rage I had never experienced before, a burning desire for revenge. I wanted to expose them, to ruin their lives, to make them feel the pain they had inflicted on me. But I knew that acting impulsively would only make things worse. I needed to be smart, strategic. I decided to hire a private investigator. I found a reputable agency online and scheduled a meeting for the following day. I told Ilara I had a freelance project that required me to work from a coffee shop. She didn't seem to notice, lost in her own little world. The investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Ottilie, listened patiently as I recounted my suspicions and showed her the email. She assured me that she could get the evidence I needed discreetly and efficiently. For the next 2 weeks, Ottilie and her team followed Ilara and Caspian. They documented their meetings, their lunches, their late-night rendezvous. They gathered photos, videos, and even audio recordings. The evidence was damning. Ottilie presented me with the final report, a thick dossier filled with irrefutable proof of Alara's affair. As I flipped through the pages, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that my suspicions had been confirmed, sadness that my marriage was over, and a cold, hard determination to make them pay. I decided to confront Alara at home. I waited for her to come back from work, my heart pounding in my chest. When she walked through the door, she greeted me with a weary smile. "Long day," she said, kicking off her shoes. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. She looked at me, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. "What is it?" I handed her the dossier. She stared at it, confused. "What's this?" "Open it," I said. She hesitated for a moment, then opened the folder. As she flipped through the pages, her face drained of color. Her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. What is this?" she stammered. "It's the truth, Alara," I said. "The truth about your affair with Caspian Vance." She didn't deny it. She couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming. Instead, she burst into tears. "Barnaby, I can explain," she sobbed. "Explain what, Alara?" "Explain how you betrayed me, how you lied to me, how you destroyed our marriage." She tried to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but I was done. I had no more tears to cry, no more energy to waste on her lies. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice cold and detached. She looked at me, her eyes filled with despair. But what about us? What about our life together?" "There is no us anymore, Alara," I said. "You destroyed it." I walked out of the apartment that night, leaving Alara sobbing on the floor. I didn't look back. I knew that I was making the right decision. I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me so deeply. The divorce was messy and acrimonious. Alara tried to paint me as the villain, claiming that I was controlling and emotionally abusive. But I had the evidence to prove her lies. In the end, the judge sided with me, granting me a favorable settlement. But the financial settlement was the least of my concerns. What I really wanted was justice. I wanted Caspian to pay for his role in destroying my marriage. I knew that simply exposing his affair wouldn't be enough. I wanted to ruin him, to take away everything he held dear. I started digging into Caspian's background, searching for any dirt I could find. And it didn't take long to uncover a pattern of unethical behavior. He had been using his position at the company to enrich himself, accepting bribes and engaging in insider trading. I gathered the evidence and presented it to the company's board of directors. They launched an internal investigation, and Caspian was quickly exposed. He was fired from his job, his reputation in tatters. But that wasn't enough. I wanted him to face criminal charges. I contacted the Securities and Exchange Commission and provided them with the evidence I had gathered. They launched their own investigation, and Caspian was eventually arrested and charged with fraud and insider trading. He pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to several years in prison. His wife divorced him, and he lost everything. He had finally paid the price for his actions. As for Alara, she was left to face the consequences of her choices. She lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. She was ostracized by her colleagues and her community. She was alone and miserable. I didn't take any pleasure in her suffering. In fact, I felt a pang of sadness for the woman I had once loved. But I knew that she had brought it all on herself. She had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. It took me a long time to heal from the betrayal. The pain was deep and lasting. But eventually, I started to rebuild my life. I focused on my work, my friends, and my hobbies. I started dating again, cautiously and tentatively. I learned a valuable lesson from the experience. I learned that trust is a precious gift, and that betrayal can leave scars that never fully heal. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought, and that I can survive even the most devastating heartbreak. Years later, I received a letter from Alara. She was living in another city, working a low-paying job. She apologized for her actions, admitting that she had made a terrible mistake. She said that she regretted everything and that she wished she could turn back time. I didn't respond to her letter. I had moved on with my life, and I didn't see any point in reopening old wounds. I had forgiven her, but I hadn't forgotten. And I knew that I could never trust her again. The rain has stopped now, and the sun is shining through the clouds. The storm inside me has finally subsided. I am at peace with my past, and I am hopeful for the future. I have learned that life is full of challenges, but that we can overcome them with strength, resilience, and a little bit of luck.